Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cover One Roundup here live on the Cover One YouTube channel each and every Monday night, or subsequently wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, Kyle Silagyi, joined this and every week by co-host David Fox, Craig's favorite person. That's funny. That's good. That's good. Friend of the show, Greg Thompson.
Hey, he said it. He said it on Twitter. I have screenshots in case he deleted them.
Good. Receipts.
Drunk.
We're going to have a lot of conversations about Twitter today, I feel like, because a lot of stupid people, a lot of smart, questioning detective types on Twitter, and we'll get into them later on. But before we do that, we actually have a lot of Buffalo Bills news to get into today. We have not done the Roundup in a long time, but the Roundup may be our longest segment today just because there is a lot to cover. But yeah, let's just jump into all of that. So in order to do that, I first have to ask you how you're doing. So David, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Kyle. I'm doing we're pretty regular over here. I got a yet another delivery of Star Wars books that I didn't actually need, but
Very cool.
Why not?
Like the new stuff, canon, or like old stuff?
No, so these are, I don't know if you ever read any of the old like Scholastic Jedi Apprentice books.
I've heard
by Jude Watson,
but no.
Very, very, very popular. But there's also like 20 of them. And they're elementary grade books. It's not like it's difficult reads or anything like that. But there are 20 of them, and they are no longer in print, so they're very expensive.
Right.
So I'd rather not say how much they actually cost.
Oh boy. We could get into a conversation about The Mandalorian, but if anything, we'll do it at the end of the episode. I also should probably say what we're talking about today after we do the Roundup and break down the latest Buffalo Bills news, rumors, and other stuff. And I went to the Mac Center today. I am dying. Okay, if I make it through this podcast alive, we're golden. But after we talk about Taylor Rapp, Bill Stadium, Sean McDermott calling plays to DeAndre Hopkins, et cetera, we are going to go through. Right, we are going to go through each of the Buffalo Bills' current position groups midway through free agency here, or not midway through the offseason, but the first couple of waves of free agency are behind us. Most of the big names are off the board. Sans or what's his name? What Lamar Jackson? Jesus, I am losing my mind. That's a whole different conversation. But anyway. We're going to go through each position group and grade the current state of the Bills. Fun. And then maybe we'll say where else they need to add, because that hasn't been done before. But before we do that, this show and Cover One in general are brought to you by BetUS, who we will hear about from now via Greg. And David, you're his favorite person.
I am.
Hey guys, Cover One is excited to announce our new partnership with BetUS. BetUS has a live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business, and an easy deposit and withdrawal process with the fastest payouts in the industry. Our loyal Cover One fans get a choice between two exclusive offers, either a 125% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,500, or a free $50 bet with no deposit required. Just use promo code COVER1 on the links provided in the show description below. BetUS, where the game begins.
That is promo code BetUS. And promo code Cover1. Speaking of promo code Cover1, this show and Cover One in general are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. David, can you tell us a little bit, or as much as you please, about Underdog?
I would love to tell everyone about Underdog Fantasy. This is the go-to fantasy site. You can use Underdog Fantasy's Pick'em contest. You can win money predicting in season if Josh Allen's going to go over his yard totals, touchdowns, completions. If you think Allen to Diggs is going to blow up this week or not, because maybe Diggs is gone. Who knows?
Right, and this particular week, not a good bet.
Maybe it'll be Allen to Hopkins. Who knows? Maybe it'll be Allen to Deonte Harty, the man formerly known as Deonte Harris. In any case, you can pick any combination of particular players and put them in your pick'em, predict up to 5 different over-unders correctly, and you can win 20 times your original money. If you use the promo code COVER1, that's the number 1, when signing up, you can make your first deposit, and Underdog will match that deposit up to $100. That's a free $100 US if you use promo code COVER1. So sign up today. Start winning today.
Thank you, Underdog. Yeah, so again, BetUS, Underdog Fantasy, thank you so much for sponsoring this show and Cover One in general. Okay, this is a message to the chat and to everyone. We're officially on Hop Watch. Wrong graphic. We're officially on Hopkins Watch. It's been rumored to be like on the verge of breaking for days at this point, so I do not expect it to break today. It very much seems like it's going to wait until the draft or around the draft until anything regarding DeAndre Hopkins gets done. But until that day, until the day that DeAndre Hopkins is traded to either the Buffalo Bills or another NFL franchise, maybe even an XFL franchise, who's to say at this point? I certainly don't know. But we will be on Hopkins watch until that happens. And when that does happen, we'll obviously have, Nuke, because it's clever. Thank you for the idea, David.
We're very clever here,
right? And then we'll also play this sound.
Tactical nuke incoming!
It'll be great. It'll be really topical and really great when that does.
That is 100% better than what I had in mind for that.
Right, yeah. When you said it for the horn or whatever, I was like, okay, that's good, but also, MW2.
That's way better.
Streak.
That's way better.
People are already talking about DeAndre Hopkins in the chat, and we're going to get into that momentarily here. I don't know if that'll be Roundup, or if we'll wait until the actual wide receivers to talk about that. But regardless, we do have to get into the Roundup here right now. This, again, is the segment where we talk about the latest Buffalo Bills news, rumors, and all that other good stuff in a quick and roundup fashion. A lot of stuff coming out, in particular today, which never happens on a Monday in March. Or late March. This does not happen for us, so we are very fortunate to actually have stuff to talk about today. Thing number one, we're just going to probably gloss over it because I don't know what else you can say at this point. The Bills released new pictures of their stadium. David, this might shock you. It looks like a football stadium. You're giving me an ad on picture 2? This looks like a football stadium. I really want to find. So this was cool. They're going to. I don't know where this. I saw a tweet earlier. I don't know where the person found like the write-ups where they described what these things were. Like this was like, we're putting the words of the Shout song and the words that mean so much to Bills Mafia on the walls to celebrate them. And it's like, you're making neon signs that say Shout. Like you're not really doing anything crazy here.
I mean, not for nothing, but like, and not to promote a potential rival, but like, didn't Matt Perino and Ryan Talbot put the Shout podcast on a billboard? Like, how much of a big step up is this from that? So
this is free advertising for Shout.
That's a very good point. They're in cahoots. This is clearly we're gonna have to sue someone.
Yeah, no, this is hurting me directly. So Greg, he's in chat. He's always just pull him up now. I love this. I love this. This is just a bar. Can I zoom into this? Probably not. I am computer illiterate. Where's the plus button? There you go. There you go. Good job, Kyle. You're doing it. Look at this bar. My favorite thing about this, let me take off Hop Watch for a second. My favorite thing about this bar is that it just looks like your standard Elmwood Avenue dive bar. This looks, if I were walking down Elmwood and I walked into this place, I would not feel at all out of place. With the flags, the American flag edition of the Bills flag, just freeze, baby. That's my favorite Bills saying. I'm always saying just freeze, baby. I've always said, right? I love Mr. Goodbar. I'd like it even more if it were inside of the Bills Stadium. And that's exactly what they're going to give me, hypothetically. So I am all cool with this. It looks like a football stadium, is what it looks like.
It's fine. It's fine. It will have like actual real. What is this? What is more neon?
They said like we are printing the logo that means so much to our fans, and we are hanging it.
It means so much to fans. Relax.
Right, yeah, like to display the power of the logo in such a way that it complements the stadium architecturally, and it's like it's a neon sign. Like you're not, like. I love it. That would be the best job in the world, right? To be the person who is given these images, and you have to write a paragraph about the significance of them.
It reminds me of the J. Peterman catalog, right? From like Seinfeld. I mean, it's a real thing, but it's most notably from Seinfeld, where like they have to write these strange, weird, esoteric stories about like a belt or shoes or whatever crap they're supposed to peddle. Yeah, it's just that with sports.
That's all it is. You can see the stadium here. It looks like a football stadium. It looks fine. Can I share this tab instead? So this stadium, I can. Awesome. This stadium is very evidently based on the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, right? Like that's what everyone said. That's what everyone always knew that it was going to be based off of, just given the company that designed it and the just dimensions and the capacity, all that. Tottenham was always a good comp. But the thing that Tottenham has is they have this one all-seater side, which would have been a really cool and really unique touch for the Bills Stadium to have. But no, they're just doing like football. Like it's just a normal football stadium. Whatever. There's really nothing else to say. Looks like a football stadium. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Those are the renderings. Roundup. Thank you. Okay. Moving on. Taylor Rapp signed with the Buffalo Bills today. Not Lettuce Rapp. We're talking Taylor Rapp, baby. I love this signing, David. And it's a signing that really I haven't seen a lot of people outside of Buffalo talking about it today because it's not official yet. And Brandon Beane even said as much. Like he's in Hawaii right now, so they can't make it official for until he gets back and does his physical or whatever. But this is a signing that I think hypothetically and maybe realistically we will be talking about more in 2 or 3 years than we are talking about right now, just because I know, right? Crazy. Let me see if I can, again, computer literacy this. Share this tab instead. I can. Let's look at this stuff that Eric tweeted earlier. According to Adam Schefter, the Buffalo Bills have signed former starting safety of the LA Rams, Taylor Rapp, to a 1-year deal. Perfect fit for McDermott's defense. Yeah. Okay, let's look at the alignments over the course of his career. Over 1,000 snaps in the box. Over 1,000 snaps at free safety.
Yep.
Over 700 snaps in the slot. Okay, so he has that versatility. He has that, do a little bit of everything ability that the Bills obviously do love from their safety. So I love this signing from a number, this reported signing from a number of different, points of view, if you will. Number one, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. Obviously, they did re-sign Jordan Poyer, which was huge for the Bills. Going to have Hyde and Poyer both back hypothetically next year, but they are both on the wrong side of 30. Poyer missed a bunch of time last year with various injuries. Micah Hyde missed damn near the entire season with a neck injury. Obviously, they will have the rest of the season the rest of the offseason to rest and recover, and hopefully they come back next year and, they play the whole season. But, I mean, let's look at the circumstances. Let's look at what it is. They're both on the wrong side of 30, and they were banged up this year a lot. So odds are one of them is going to miss at least one game next season. Now you have Taylor Rapp, who, again, as Eric noted, former starting safety for the LA Rams, could start for a myriad of teams across the NFL right now. But instead, he's coming to be safety number 3 in Buffalo. And, should something happen to Hyde or Poyer, you can just plug in Taylor Rapp and keep it going. Additionally, assuming Hyde and Poyer are healthy and Taylor Rapp is your number 3 safety, just the things that he allows you to do package-wise and personnel-wise, right? The fun things you can get up to in dime. with, a number 3 safety like Taylor Rapp, and like especially
like an actual safety, not
Right.
like Saron Neal is like a safety corner type.
That's where we
This
listed him on the
knows
depth
how to
chart.
play that position at the NFL level. So
right. So you can get up to a lot of fun stuff with Taylor Rapp. Again, assuming all 3 of your safeties are healthy, you can do a lot of fun stuff. And like people have already talked about, like Tremaine Edmunds being gone, like maybe that's one of the ways that they attack the lack of a Tremaine Edmunds, right? They're not going to invest. I mean, they obviously didn't invest in a Levante David for a year or a Bobby Wagner for a year. They might still draft a guy. I think they will at some point in the draft, but like maybe
I would imagine so.
Right, but maybe that is one of the ways that they kind of circumvent the loss of Tremaine Edmunds is they play more dime. They just take another linebacker off the field and replace him with another DB, which, I mean, that remains to be seen whether or not that's what they do. And then also just going off of number 1, great depth, assuming he needs to actually start. 2, he allows you to do a lot of things personnel-wise. 3, he's 25 years old. And so, like, this is very much okay, get you in the building for a year, acclimate you, like you learn the system and we'll learn you. And, assuming this goes as we all plan it will go, next year when either Hyde moves on as a free agent or, I mean, Poyer alluded to retiring in his, in his press conference. So like maybe whatever happens and one of them is not back, in 2025 or whatever, or 2024 rather, you just re-sign Taylor Rapp and you continue. You go on from there. Yep. So, David, your reaction to the Taylor Rapp signing?
I was a little surprised that they did it now after like they had already re-signed Jordan Poyer. But pretty much for all the reasons that you said, I'm very excited about this. I mean, this is somebody that is young, can earn another contract with this team, assuming he plays well. And, like you said, Hyde and Poyer are not guaranteed. I mean, like before we even started free agency, right? Like safety was a position where it was nothing but question marks, right? Hyde's injury, Hamlin situation, Jaquan Johnson is not an answer at all to that position. Dean Marlowe was a free agent, and then Jordan Poyer was expected to leave as a free agent. And then Poyer comes back. Marlowe's still out there. Jaquan Johnson went to the Raiders, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah. And then, you still have Hamlin trying to figure out that whole situation. And then you have Hyde and his neck fusion surgery. So at the very, very minimum, let's say you have actually 2 legitimate starting safeties right now that you feel like can actually start for you in Taylor Rapp and Jordan Poyer. So that you're not relying solely by week 1 of the regular season to be like, hey, remember that guy who had neck fusion surgery? Right. We're just gonna throw him back out there in week 1. Now, granted, there were rumors about him coming back in the playoffs,
right? But,
which still crazy to even think about. But I feel more comfortable having it in September rather than January. But still, I think Rapp is one of those guys that is just such a classic sort of McDermott type of signing where he's been on he's been on the Rams with a couple different coordinators, and has had varying degrees of success. But ultimately, like going to a team like the Bills, and especially a guy like McDermott, is just like this is going to be the best thing for you. It's going to be the best thing for Taylor Rapp. Because I think he is a very capable player. I think he's a very capable player who, with the Bills, is going to be put into a good position to just make plays and be a good safety. I mean, again, I go back to like when McDermott was in Carolina, and I think it was the year they went like 15-1, went to the Super Bowl, etc. When Kurt Coleman was like this Pro Bowl type of safety. And like, I remember Kurt Coleman when he was in Philadelphia and how atrocious he was. And just like, all right, I guess this is just, what McDermott and his group can do.
Fun stuff. How do you think this?
And then the other part of this, right, is the fact that he got signed for like 1.7 million, right? Which is under that compensatory signing threshold. So you have a starter who's being paid basically minimal money to go and ball and see if he can be a part of the future plans. Love that.
It's a great move. And then Brandon Beane, of course, saying today at the owners' meetings in Arizona that most of the signings he's made this offseason have been for like $1.7 million and thus will not factor into the compensatory pick formula. And it looks like the team is in line to get a 2024 third-round pick, which is actually more like, early fourth round, but regardless, they're getting it. They should be, getting a third round pick next year because of the loss of Tremaine Edmunds, which, I mean, I think in hindsight, I don't want to say like in hindsight because it hasn't happened yet, but like, I think I would have rather had Tremaine Edmunds than a third round draft pick, but it is what it is.
Yes, but I'm not bringing back the poem, Kyle. I can't do this for another week.
It is what it is. So yeah. Speaking of, you just talked about Sean McDermott and being a good defensive coach. In non-shocking news, this is the last part, maybe the last part of the Roundup. I don't know where we're putting D-Hop talk, but Sean McDermott's calling defensive plays this year, of course, with Leslie Frazier not returning this year, taking a year off, whatever. We'll see how that progresses, but Sean McDermott is not only going to continue being the head coach and managing, that day-to-day game management, all that stuff. He's also taking over the defensive play calling. Now, people have talked about this ad nauseum because this has always been, I guess, the most likely scenario, the most likely outcome. But like, this isn't something that like is crazy, I guess, because like he was the defensive play caller in Carolina for a long time, and then. There were times, not long. I've seen people say like long stretches in which Sean McDermott would just take play calling from Leslie Frazier. I don't think that's necessarily true, but there were certainly times in which Sean McDermott did take defensive play calling from Leslie Frazier. And like, there are some people who like to paint it out as like this malicious thing that Sean McDermott was doing, like painting and overreach, or like, did I just say painting? That didn't make any sense, but just like overreaching and being like, this malicious dude who wanted total control over the team. And it's like, no, like Sean McDermott like said during these things, like, after he would do this, just like, sometimes Leslie's not feeling it and I have a better feel for the game. Sometimes I will be doing it and I won't have a feel and I'll give it back to Leslie. Like, it's a give or take thing. It's a collaborative process. But whatever. So I think this was the most likely outcome, and it's fine. I guess I'm cool with it.
I am excited, or I'm intrigued. I'm very, very intrigued by what this is actually going to look like, especially when you remove Tremaine Edmunds from this equation now, because you have to. So now, not only are you talking about potential, like, not total scheme shifts, because it's going to be the same sort of basic idea of defense, but just sort of run in a different way, because I think there's going to be a little bit more aggression. I think there's going to be a little more blitzing. Again, I always go back to the idea that McDermott came from that Jim Johnson Philadelphia Eagles tree, and Jim Johnson was just a hyper-aggressive, heavy blitzing type of guy. And I would sure love to see McDermott do that, because I like aggressive,
who doesn't?
Blitzing type of defense. It's fun. It's fun to watch. It's chaotic and it's fun, but obviously there is merit to the type of defense that Leslie Frazier was running the past like 5 years, because that, especially against a very pass happy league where you want to have multiple safeties back. I mean, they were kind of the first ones to put together that defense of, we're going to keep two safeties back and we're going to force Mahomes to either throw short or just run the ball. And then it started in that like weird, what was it, like Monday night-ish game or Tuesday game?
Right, yeah.
Whatever that 2020 game was, and they just got run all over because Andy Reid, for the first time in his career, actually committed to the run. Which, if you were a gambling person and you were told, like, is Andy Reid going to run the ball like 30 times in a single game? 99% of people would say, no, of course he's not. The Bills thought the same way. Anyway, I'm relitigating a game that happened like 3 years ago.
Right, yeah.
But they were really the first ones to start doing that. And then everybody else sort of realized, oh, right, this is probably the way to kind of like defend a team like the Chiefs and other pass-happy type of teams. Because it just forces them to, go underneath, go for long drives, and by sheer numbers, right? Just like as a statistical fact, the more plays that an offense runs or has to run, the larger the likelihood of some sort of mistake happening, right? Whether that's a sack, a penalty, a turnover, something happening. And that's what defenses really want to have happen in a lot of ways. Either you get a turnover immediately and you start stalling out, or you just, try and find ways to limit the overall yardage gained on each play so that you can try and create as many mistakes or try and create as many opportunities for the offense to make a mistake of some sort or another. So for McDermott, I mean, I think that the problem with like McDermott versus Frazier is that Frazier just sort of became really stale and that the defense just got really, really vanilla to the point of just like too predictable, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain level of predictability that you can get away with when you have a lot of talent on your team, like the Bills have had for the last couple of years. But especially when your two starting safeties are kind of gone, or one of them is like being duct taped and glued together for most of the season, there's only so much you can do. And again, one of your starting corners didn't come back until Thanksgiving. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's only so much you can do with this. But I'm hoping with McDermott that there's just a few tweaks here, a few tweaks there, a couple simulated pressure, some creepers, something to just like make defense or make offenses rather have to think about what they're facing every single week, rather than just like, okay, here's where they're rotating, here's how they rotate here, here's how they shift things here. It's just there's got to be something else week to week that forces people to have to think, because if you think, then you're not playing, and that's what you want for an offense if you're a defense.
I think that wraps up Roundup. Unless, do we want to do Hop Watch? Or are we doing Hop Watch in Roundup, or waiting until we get to the receiving core?
We'll wait. We'll wait on it.
We'll wait. Okay.
We'll call that a tease.
Okay, let's actually get into what to advertise for this show. 28 minutes into it. Golly. Okay, so now we are going to go through the Buffalo Bills position groups, their roster at this juncture as of March 27th, 2023, and grade each position group. Maybe we'll allude to, positions that, well, obviously you'll be able to tell by our grades which positions we think need to be added to. And then at the end, maybe we'll give a team grade, if you will, if we think, they've improved or decreased in quality this offseason. So question for the chat and for David before we actually commence here. Should we factor injuries into these grades?
Sure.
Because like defensive end is going to be significantly different, if I'm grading healthy Von Miller or I'm getting half a season of Von Miller, right? My grades are going to be different there.
Let's say yes, and we can just sort of discuss it as we go.
Okay, so let's start with the quarterbacks. Sarah Christine writes, where is this? Who do you guys think will be starting in the slot come opening day? Tease for the wide receiver. We're just building up this wide receiver talk. Okay, so yeah, we'll get to the wide receivers here quickly, I do believe. Quarterback, we got Josh Allen, Kyle Allen. Kyle Allen, who they signed. We've made jokes on this podcast before. And everyone's made jokes, right? Like I like to pride myself as an original jokester, if you will, number one troll of Bill's Twitter, which there's a shocking number of those. But anyway, I try to be a jokester, right? But sometimes, I'll reiterate a joke. If it's good, I'll just reiterate it. And like people have long said that like whoever the backup quarterback is doesn't really matter as long as Josh Allen likes to play golf with him. And like, they're not even hiding it anymore. Like, this is just something that is true. Like, the video came out today of Josh Allen and Kyle Allen playing golf with each other. And it's like, they obviously did that before Kyle Allen signed with the Bills, but like, that's why he's here. Like, it's just because he's a friend of Josh Allen who, like, again, David, as you said on our last podcast, right? Where it's just like, if Josh Allen gets hurt, we are fucked and we don't practice fucked. So like, exactly.
Like,
And then,
listen. I mean, it's like anything else in the league, right? Where it's like, hey, we need somebody to fill this position. Oh, I know a guy. He's my buddy.
exactly.
That's it. That's how this league works, top to bottom.
A lot of careers, right? This is not a meritocracy, people. If anyone
Not
ever
even
told you
close.
that, they are lying. Okay,
They're straight up lying.
So yeah, A for the quarterback room, you have a top 3 quarterback in the league, and then his buddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all you need. A+, even.
We're moving on to the running back room here, which the Bills made a rather significant addition to in the offseason. I do believe they upgraded. If I'm going to be honest, I think they did improve the running back room here this offseason. ESPN even lists the dude who they signed as the number 1 running back on the depth chart. I'm not going to. But running back room right now, you got James Cook, Damien Harris, and Nyheim Hines. Now, Damien Harris, of course, has signed in between our last episode and now. I love the signing. I really do love the signing. I think that he's a little bit more like we talked about on our last podcast, the idea of Jamal Williams, right?
Yes.
And like how he'd be this red zone threat, goal line threat, if you will, where it's just like people were like, yeah, but that's all Jamal Williams can do is, you only hand it off to him when you're near the goal line. And I was like, yeah, but the Bills' offense is dynamic enough that they're going to be getting into the red zone frequently that you can just give it to Jamal Williams. That's kind of all you need is a power back. I think Damien Harris, you can, right? Like, he can kind of be that touchdown vulture dude, but I also think he's a little bit more dynamic. I think there is a little bit more to Damien Harris's game than just being that, touchdown vulture, if you will. I think that he is, and just looking at the rest of this running back room, you have James Cook, who, I mean, this is a very pro James Cook podcast, can do, and I do think with the, I think he's going to make strides in the offseason. We'll get into the offensive line and whether or not the offensive line is going to allow him to take strides of the season. But I do think James Cook, again, you look at the season that he had last year, the development was very linear, which is a very promising sign as he enters year 2. Like, look, he was starting from not a good spot, right? He made some simple mistakes early, but by the end of year 1 for James Cook, those mistakes were largely corrected, and he was kind of taking the heavier share of the snaps, if you will, or the snaps were much more balanced than they were at the beginning of the year. So I'm very excited about James Cook. And then you got Damien Harris as, the 1B change of pace dude, complimentary back. That's really good stuff. And then Nyheim Hines, probably just a returner. We'll see if he gets any offensive snaps. So, David, thoughts on Damien Harris, and then what is your grade here?
I don't know if I would call it an upgrade necessarily, just more of an appropriate fit, right? Because, like, I think overall, Devin Singletary is a better running back than Damien Harris is. But that's because I feel like Singletary is just sort of overall better at like each individual aspect of being a running back, right? Where like he can run gap zone, he can kind of pass protect, or at least he's not like a total liability as a pass protector. He can catch out of the backfield fairly effectively. He's creative in the open field. He can make plays on his own. But overall, there was not going to be like a ton. He just wasn't great at any one particular aspect or another, right? So when you pair him with somebody like James Cook, who has a very clearly defined skill set as a speedier running back, a back that is going to create plays in the passing game, you need, I think, a more clear complement to that. You need a very clear thunder to your very clear lightning, essentially. And Damien Harris is very clearly that thunder. And so I really like the signing. I think it's a more appropriate fit. I'm hard pressed to call it an upgrade. I just think it's a better fit for what this running back room needs to be moving forward. So I'll call this a solid B for the running back group. There's it would be an A if they could have all three of these guys kind of in one player.
Right, yeah.
But there's only so many Saquon Barkleys or Christian McCaffreys. So there you go.
There's a Bijan Robinson, though.
There is. Yeah.
People are talking, David. People are saying Bill John Robinson, and that's just me. It's me saying that. But look, yeah, they're probably not going to draft Bijan, but imagine if they draft Bijan. Imagine how.
Yeah.
Again,
I don't even see him lasting anywhere near to where the Bills would be
not.
at 27. And I can't imagine them trading up for Bijan, right? I just don't see that happening there.
I can't.
Maybe I'm just like trying to will this into existence that they won't trade up for a running back, but
it'd be a lot cooler if they did. No, again, and I think like Greg has joked about this on Twitter, and like everyone has kind of talked about it, but just like, look, if they do draft Bijan Robinson, it's going to be like the biggest momentary just sigh and just like,
yeah.
You really didn't have to draft a running back with your first round pick. And then everyone just collectively would realize, like, but it's Bijan Robinson. Like, he's going to be a very sick player for a couple of seasons here. He's really going to add a lot to this offense. And, you know, when he's rushing for 1,200 yards, 10 tunners, I'm really not going to care about it. So, but no, they're not going to draft him. Let's move on to the wide receiver room. There's a lot to talk about regarding the wide receivers here. I know, right? Crazy. So let's just go down the list here. They've made a couple of additions here to the wide receiver room. And again, we'll get into them. I'm also going to go over the dudes who aren't going to make the roster, but are currently on it. Okay, so we have Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakir, Deonte Harty, Trent Sherfield, Desmond Patman, Isaiah Coulter, and Keyshawn Johnson. Yep, they brought Keyshawn. Great stuff to bring Keyshawn back. Also, I can't remember dude's name. Touchdown Jesus. What's his name?
Jay Kumaro.
He's gone. Devastating maneuver.
Future Jet.
Future
Jay
Jet.
Kumaro.
You are so right. Well, we'll see. We'll see if Rodgers is a future Jet. Yes. This is an interesting position group because I don't think they're done adding to it. I think that whether it is through D-Hop, which we will get into in a second, or it is with a draft pick or two, right? I think 2 draft picks is a realistic possibility. You know, even if they don't get D-Hop, I could see them doubling up on wide receiver in the draft, just as they did a couple of years ago with Gabe Davis and Isaiah Hodgins. But, you know, we will see how they approach it. I do not think this current wide receiver core is where they move into. I don't think this is who they ultimately go into the season with. But judging it as it is, look, Stephon Diggs is great, right?
Yes.
Like, he is bona fide number 1 receiver, top 5 in the NFL. No questions about him. And
Correct.
He's not going anywhere, regardless of his Twitter account. Gabe Davis. I have some question marks about Gabriel Davis. I've made them well heard on this podcast.
Sure.
David. I think you have some questions about Gabriel Davis.
Yeah.
I like the player in theory, but to me, he was just too inconsistent last year. Like, I know people like bring up his statistics and they're like, oh yeah, but his stats were in line with other wide receiver 2s, you know, of the same whatever, but just like he didn't have that dynamicism. Is that a word? I can't speak.
Let's say it is.
Like I said, y'all, I went to the Mac Center earlier. You got to give me a break today. You gotta give.
You need to fully abbreviate this moment.
Yes, I don't. I appreciate that you thought in my current state I would, know what you're saying. No clue though. But yeah, like Gabe Davis, they'll go in. He'll probably, regardless of what they do. See, I am more comfortable with Gabe Davis being my third option, but like I think they are fine with Gabe Davis being their second option. And I guess, I could be sold on that. But as of right now, I'm like, I don't know. Khalil Shakir, love Khalil Shakir, really like the player. But like, I think I did see enough out of him last year in spurts, in his small opportunities, to think that, like, okay, they're convinced that he's going to be taking the bulk of the snaps in the slot, and that's cool. Like, I'm fine with that. I'm cool with Khalil Shakir taking a bigger step and them kind of projecting him as their slot dude this year. Will he ultimately be? I don't know, but like, I'm not scared of Khalil Shakir there. I think that's fine. And then again, the two dudes who they signed, Deonte Harty, who they kind of reset the clock on Isaiah McKenzie, if you will, right? Like, they bring in Isaiah McKenzie to the extreme, kind of, where it's just like smaller, shiftier, better route runner, like a better wide receiver than Isaiah McKenzie was. And they're going to use him. I mean, Bean has already said that he's in that wide receiver 4 role. He's going to come in, do some of the gadget stuff, but also there is some untapped potential as a route runner, as an actual wide receiver. And it's not just like a slot dude, right? You look at where he's lined up, you watch him play. I mean, look, do I want a 5'6" receiver on the boundary? I don't know, but like,
not consistently,
right? But like, you can put him there. Like, he has done it, can do it. Like, you could do some fun stuff with Deonte Harty. There's some untapped potential there. And then Trent Sherfield, the only other wide receiver currently on the roster, who I think is a lock to make the roster, just given his special teams ability, also offers you a bit offensively if you're in a pinch. So, like, it's difficult to grade because I can't project, right? I can't say if they draft Josh Downs, if they draft Jackson Smith and Jigba, if they trade for DeAndre Hopkins, it's going to be an A. I can't do that because that's not what it currently is as of, again, March 27th. So current state, B-. Is that fair for the receiving core? B?
That feels almost too low, just because, like, I feel like Stephon Diggs by himself merits, like, a B.
Yeah, B might sound... I think B is more fair. But, like...
I feel like... So
none of the other
of all,
dudes are
right,
needle
like,
movers. Is Gabe Davis a needle mover?
I feel like Gabe Davis can be a needle mover, right? And, like, I think that... And I would have to kind of to look this up a bit and do a little more research on this, but I feel like a lot of the frustration with Gabe Davis is sort of at times almost born out of just the number of times he had to be thrown at, right? Because there was, again, we've talked about this. There was no production from the slot. There was no one in the slot. They tried to make McKenzie the slot guy, couldn't do it because he's Isaiah McKenzie. And so, they're bringing out John Brown and Cole Beasley out of retirement to try and get something out of there, and they just couldn't. I mean, the entire time. So then you're forced to either keep force feeding Stephon Diggs, who teams are going to try their best to take him away from the game plan, and then you're throwing to Davis, who I mean, is he the type of guy who should be getting that much production? Or getting that many opportunities? Probably not. No. And so, especially when you're dealing with a high ankle sprain like he was, apparently, throughout the season, it's hard to handle that much, right? And Gabe Davis is, in my opinion, like, at best, a wide receiver 2. He's not like one of those, T. Higgins types where he's like, he's a wide receiver 2, but like, you can use him as like a wide receiver 1 kind of. Jalen Waddle would be a wide receiver 1 on most teams, and he just happens to have Tyreek Hill on his team. God, still makes me mad.
That is right.
But with Gabe Davis, I mean, I would feel more comfortable with him as my wide receiver 3, which is why I am sort of becoming more pro DeAndre Hopkins for this team. But, I do think just the addition of somebody like Deonte Harty, the player formerly known as Deonte Harris,
the artist formerly known as Deonte Harris.
Right, exactly. So I think that is the needle mover is probably a bit much, but it's clearly, in my opinion, an upgrade over Isaiah McKenzie because, like, Isaiah McKenzie was McKenzie was just like, okay, we know what you are, and whenever the ball's thrown at you, I'm kind of just holding my breath, hoping you just catch it, or that you're in the right place, right? Like, whereas with Harty, it's like, okay, I feel pretty confident you're going to catch it, but I feel more confident that if you do catch it, something good's going to happen. I mean, that was the big thing. Like, when he got signed, all the like stat heads, PFF guys are like, this is a great signing because he is super efficient as a receiver, like just picks up yards whenever he gets the ball. Also, gonna pause for Y's comment. I hope for D Hop. That's great. I'm using that. I'm stealing that. Thank you, Y. But I think that between that, maybe Khalil Shakir in year 2 will provide some improvement. But I don't know. So I'm going with B because I feel very confident in Stephon Diggs. I feel more confident than most in Gabe Davis. I feel like Deonte Harty's an upgrade over McKenzie. So, yeah, I'm going to go with a B.
B is probably fair, but for me, the thing that was kind of dragging it down, and I mean, we had people chiming in. Roy Collins wrote C+, RJ wrote B-. For me, there's just a lot of question marks. There's just a lot of things that are kind of holding, like Stephon Diggs, not a question mark. Gabe Davis, who am I getting? Right? Am I getting the dude who I saw spurts of the first 2 years, or am I getting? Like, the thing is, like, we always said about Gabe Davis those first 2 years, just like, oh my God, when they give this dude opportunities to make plays, he comes up. Like, look at his catches along the sideline. He comes down with crazy balls. Like, I remember tweeting at one point, like, every week Gabe Davis makes a catch where I'm like, oh my God, that's the greatest catch I've ever seen. And then I forget about it because he does it again the next week. Like, he was just like in a limited role, a crazy efficient and crazy highlight reel player. And then, we all talked about, like, not even just this podcast, all Bills fans, just like the idea of like, okay, now that he's taking that step forward and you're going to get this more consistently, you're going to give him more opportunities to make these plays. That's going to, bode well for him. And then, as you just talked about, David, maybe he's not the type of guy who needs to be given that many opportunities, right? Like, maybe that's just not the type of player that he is. And again, it goes into, like, I think Cole Beasley tweeted, like, it's kind of hard to judge him because all of his targets are 40 yards down the field. And like, he was playing with a high ankle sprain. So like, his struggles last year are circumstantial. So like, there's obviously a lot of things that go into Gabriel Davis. And like, if people are optimistic about Gabe Davis, I definitely buy that. I'm just more on the, like, I'm not sold. And then Khalil Shakir, again, I like him, but it's a question mark. Is he taking that step forward? Deonte Harty, again, like, I honestly don't have many questions about Deonte Harty. I do think, how they're going to use him, assuming Dorsey can use him like that, and I can they develop him along as a receiver? I like that. I like his potential there. So yeah, I think we'll just land on B. And again, this is the part where we should talk about DeAndre Hopkins.
Yes.
So that's obviously been the rumor since last Thursday, was it, or last Wednesday? I went to my favorite trivia spot to play bar trivia, and I thought it was done. I thought I was going to be drunk around a bunch of people when the Bills traded for DeAndre Hopkins. I was like, this is going to be an incredible moment that we share together. It didn't happen, sadly. But that day, again, this is where I need to talk about Twitter, because Twitter has been fun for me the last couple of days.
Yes, it has.
So let's just pull up this tweet. I tweeted the other day. I did DM DeAndre Hopkins, and I was like, don't respond if you're coming to the Bills. Might shock you, DeAndre Hopkins didn't respond.
So he's coming to the Bills, is what you're saying.
Right. Then the next day, I tweeted a picture that shows that he did respond. And he responded with McDonald's hamburger. The number of tweets that I have received asking, is this real? This can't be real. Is this fake? Kyle, please tell me this is fake. Please tell me this didn't actually happen. And then they're like, this blew up. Like people from other fan bases were like, oh,
Yeah.
this means that he's, going to the Chiefs. He's going to the Patriots. And it's like, to everyone who's been tweeting at me and asking, did 3-time All-Pro wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins message you, Kyle, on Instagram and say McDonald's hamburger? The answer is yes. Obviously, that happened. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins messaged me McDonald's hamburger. So, but let's pretend for a second that he didn't do that, and let's pretend that it still is the idea of trading for DeAndre Hopkins is still very much on the table. Bean kind of quelled the rumors a bit today, and I think Sal Capaccio came out and said that the Chiefs are maybe the team to watch regarding DeAndre Hopkins, which fun. But like the Bills, according to people who know, are still very much in, according to some of the leaders in the clubhouse, assuming they can get the contract to work. Arizona's kind of being, like, I guess they have leverage if you think about it, where it's like,
do they know?
It's their asset. They don't have to trade them. But
they don't have to, but what do you gain from keeping DeAndre Hopkins and paying him a bunch of money in a season where you're probably going to end up with the first overall pick?
Yeah, no, that's all very fair. That's all very fair. But just like, that Arizona's going to be a shit show. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. But like, I wish they had Hard Knocks this year. I really do. But no, we'll see. Let's just talk about DeAndre Hopkins, the player, and the potential compensation that the Bills would have to give up. David, what do you think that DeAndre Hopkins would bring to this offense? What more would a player like DeAndre Hopkins allow the Bills to do? And what kind of compensation would you give up for him?
So before we get into that, that McDonald's hamburger tweet, that has 616,000 views. Is that your most like viewed and or engaged with tweet of all time? Because I'm guessing it is.
I think it's got to be. I had one a couple of years ago because there was a proposal. This podcast would be so much easier for me to just talk about my bullshit if you were from Buffalo. But in Buffalo, there is a Skyway that it's just called the Skyway. It's a throughway in the sky, aptly named. And it, for a long time, cut off our access to Lake Erie, which also for a long time, Lake Erie wasn't much to look at. But the Skyway historically has been looked at as like this huge blunder. Like, yes, it's convenient for some people, but also it cut off the waterfront. Whatever. So for years, it's been talked about, how are we going to remove the Skyway? What are we going to do with it? Whatever. And so years ago, they had this pitch, like, you design what you would turn the Skyway into, and then they'll pick the winner, and maybe they'll do it. And so somebody designed something called Buffalo Sky Beach, which was just, you keep a part of the throughway up, or of the Skyway up, and you build pools and water slides and tiki bars, and you cover it all in glass. And that was the proposal. And I just screenshotted it and tweeted it, and that blew up. I don't know if it did numbers like this though. D-Hop.
Well, you can also see that you got 67 bookmarks, which,
I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
It's very weird. In fact, it might be the creepiest, but it's not the creepiest part of Twitter, but it's getting up there for me. Anyway, back to the actual discussion here. DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins is a good receiver. I don't think he's quite the same level that he used to be. I mean, he was never, when he came out of college, he was one of those, high floor, low ceiling type of prospects because he didn't have a lot of top tier athletic ability. It just turns out that like all the sort of high floor stuff he was good at also happened to be so good that the floor was the ceiling. Right? Like,
standard is the standard. The floor is the ceiling.
He just became that guy where it was just like, it didn't matter if he was covered. He was going to out jump everybody. He was going to just be right where he needed to be, put his hands exactly where the ball was going to be. Just never going to drop anything, that type of guy. Right. That being said, I don't know if that's a Josh Allen type of receiver, right? Because Josh Allen's type of receiver is more like a Stephon Diggs or a Cole Beasley, who, are sort of shiftier, shake open type of route runners. And it's not that DeAndre Hopkins is a bad route runner. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. But he's not that type of route runner. He's not somebody that's going to just like shake off every defender, especially now that he's 33, 32, whatever he is.
Mm-hmm.
That's not, and that's fine. But like when you add that component into your offense, is he wide receiver 2? Is he wide receiver 3? And if he's going to be on this team, I mean, you have Stephon Diggs talking about, they won in a certain way in the first 8 or 9 weeks. And then after that, things started to change. Well, what started to change was probably Stephon Diggs' target share. You add DeAndre Hopkins to that. What happens to your target shares? What happens to the overall stability of your wide receiver room? It gets a little dicey. And,
only one football.
There is only one football. And this is, probably in part why they brought in somebody like Adam Henry to be the wide receivers coach, because he's dealt with a lot of big personalities like Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. And he was in Dallas with CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. And, he kind of figures out how to deal with big personalities. That's a good thing, a very good thing. But this is this is something that can get very dicey in a hurry. It can go really, really well, right? Obviously. There is a very, very clear scenario where it's like DeAndre Hopkins joins the Bills and makes the Bills significantly better and everyone is happy, right? There's also a scenario where it's like DeAndre Hopkins joins the Bills. Stephon Diggs is not quite as happy during the season because he's just not getting as many targets.
Right.
And maybe that doesn't matter because they're winning. But they were also winning last year. Quite a few games, actually. 13 of them, which is hard to do in the NFL. And Stephon Diggs still definitely had some issues. And some of that was just because it was so extreme, right? Like that Cleveland game where he didn't get targeted in the first half, essentially. And there were a couple other games where he was obviously getting frustrated, but maybe that changes. Maybe they're able to figure out exactly what they need to do, but I don't know. I will never say that I am against getting DeAndre Hopkins. I just don't know if this is a very clear 100%. This is going to be totally worth it. You know what I mean?
I agree. See, I'm so torn. I'm so torn on the idea of DeAndre Hopkins because, in theory, on paper, love the idea of adding DeAndre Hopkins to this team. Right? That's great. And then, but you also bring up, is he the type of receiver that Josh Allen necessarily likes? Well, I think Josh Allen's a good enough quarterback to figure out how to work with DeAndre Hopkins. But that said, no, he's not their traditional. Right, Josh Allen, a type of receiver. AK Cash writes here. He does get separation. He does get separation in his own way. And also, his catch radius is incredible. But
ridiculous.
Right. But still, that's not, traditionally how Josh Allen succeeds. Like you said, David, he's more, the Stephon Diggs. He's more the Cole Beasley, right? Like if we were trying to get a receiver for him in this draft, he's more the Jordan Addison type, right? Where it's like Bills aren't getting Jordan Addison, but that type of receiver is what Josh Allen would really succeed with. But I think for me, their decision, I think them being in on DeAndre Hopkins is, I guess, a big enough indication into their roster building strategy. But I also think that it kind of signals that they're not going to invest in long-term youth into the receiving core this offseason, right? I don't, maybe they do shock me and they do take a wide receiver in round 1 or round 2, but them being even in on DeAndre Hopkins kind of signals to me that they're like, no, we want some immediate production. We want some immediate impact because we are like the Super Bowl window, people will say, is always open as long as you have Josh Allen. And that is true. But at some point you need to, add some youth, develop that along, especially at skill positions like wide receiver. But regardless, people can kind of, and I think people will, if the Bills do get Von Miller, if the Bills do get DeAndre Hopkins, I think they will compare it to the Von Miller move, right? In terms of this one piece at a position of need, a position that they struggled at last season to set them over the edge. And it's like, yes and no, right? There are parallels, but it's not identical because it's like you look at what the defensive end room was like before they signed Von Miller, right? They had tried to develop some of their own defensive ends along. Yeah. They invested significant draft capital into the defensive end position. Greg Rousseau, Boogie Basham, AJ Epinesa, and just the defensive line in general. Ed Oliver. They had drafted Harrison Phillips relatively high, right? Like the defensive line is a position group that they have invested so many day one and day two draft picks into. And them signing Von Miller was just them essentially saying, like, yes, like they were like, okay, yes, these players are going to benefit in a myriad of ways from getting Von Miller and, working with him and benefiting from him on and off the field. But it was also them kind of admitting like, yeah, we haven't really, these draft picks haven't really worked as much as, we wanted them to. So we need to bring in the big guns. We need to bring in a Von Miller. We need to pay Von Miller $120 million, to get him in and actually get some production out of this position. Whereas in the wide receiver room, you bring in a DeAndre Hopkins, it's like, yes, you're doing that kind of to the wide receiver room where it's like, yep, that we're for real. We are, we are going for the Super Bowl. We are bringing in a bona fide number one guy opposite our already bona fide number one guy. Yep. But you haven't invested in the wide receiver room. You really haven't added that high profile youth. You really haven't invested the high draft picks into the wide receiver room to let them develop. So like for me, it kind of reads like you're giving up on it and you haven't really tried to do it, right? Where it's like, who is the highest wide receiver that Brandon Beane has drafted? Gabriel Davis, round 4.
Yeah.
Everyone else, like Isaiah Hodgins, isn't around anymore. Isaiah McKenzie, who he developed for a couple of years, was a waiver claim. Just like, I don't know. I would just rather, again, I like DeAndre Hopkins. I think he fits their timeline more than a first-round wide receiver does, certainly. Right? Like DeAndre Hopkins, for what the Bills think they are, fits that timeline, fits that mindset more than a first-round rookie. I just want them at some point to actually draft, a athlete, high upside wide receiver and develop him along. Right. So, like, if they get DeAndre Hopkins and still draft Jaden Reed, awesome. Like, I have no complaints. That is a great offseason for me. Like, that is a great way for this to transpire. But I don't know if they do that. I don't know if they do, get DeAndre Hopkins and still take a receiver in like round 3 or whatever. So, like, as for compensation, it's been, thrown all around, right? Like some rumors that, teams inquiring want to do like a Brandon Cooks trade, like not that much capital. And then there were rumors that Arizona wants a 2nd-round pick. And it's like, well, there's a lot of space in between those two trade offers.
Listen, I would love, he did not draft Sam. I'm sure Arizona is asking for a 2nd-round pick. And I would love to just find $20,000 on the street. Mm-hmm. I don't think either is really going to happen, though. So, this seems like one of those things where Arizona has a new GM. He's a former Patriots type of guy. So I think he just wants to kind of posture and not make a sort of deal that's going to make it seem like he can just sort of be bought at any price or at any time. I think he wants to just sort of drag this out for as long as possible and then wait until draft day, and you'll probably see a draft day trade is my guess.
This is a fair point here from Mike Malley Guitar. Buffalo doesn't have a chance to draft the top 15 wide receivers anyway. That is fair. Buffalo's not going to be in the Quentin Johnston tier. They're not going to get a Jackson Smith and Jigba. They're not going to get a Jordan Addison. But like, when you get to like Zay Flowers tier, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard.
It's intriguing.
I'm not going to say what I was going to say, but like, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it because that could not, that might end very poorly for me. But like, I like the idea, right? Like I very much like the idea of a Zay Flowers or like investing some actual capital into the wide receiver position, into the offensive weapon position. But hey, is that enough Hopkins talk? Did we get enough Hopkins talk?
I would say so, but can we play the sound?
Do it
drop
anyway.
again?
Yeah,
let's do it anyway.
Did the Bills trade for DeAndre Hopkins? Why did that start from there? Bills trade for DeAndre Hopkins.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Let's all pretend. Let's all pretend it happened. And we all had a really fun time reacting to DeAndre Hopkins.
It's going to be such a shame that this trade does not happen live on our show because no one else is going to do something like that.
Well, we are, nuke warning. We are, an hour and 7 minutes deep, and we are only on the tight end position. So we are giving them ample time.
I forgot we were grading.
I know, right? We are giving them ample time to actually, make this trade. Please, Brandon, please. I know Brandon loves the show. He watches every week, and then he messages me, and he's like, Kyle, you did a great job on the show. And I'm like, thanks, Brandon. Okay.
Yeah, that's what Brandon Bean sounds like.
Yeah, I do a perfect Brandon Bean impression. He and I love to frequent the Waffle House.
I believe that.
Look at this. I got a Waffle House mug. I went to Waffle House the other day, and by that I mean like a month ago. Incredible waffles. I love Waffle House. Okay, tight end position. I say this again. This is bold. This may be bold. I say this as a Dawson Knox enjoyer. I like Dawson Knox as much as the next guy, but not as much as there are a lot of people who really like Dawson Knox. I'm just he's Dawson Knox. He's cool. I am quite high on Quentin Morris, right? Like I am higher than most on Quentin Morris. I very much like him as an athlete, as a potential mismatch. I like him as, a developmental piece in this offense. I do not know who Zach Davidson is. I could, be sitting next to Zach Davidson in a bar and have a full conversation with him and have no idea he is the third string tight end of the Buffalo Bills.
Is he really?
Yes.
Jesus. All right, go on.
D+.
D+.
I think this is a D+.
That's very aggressive.
C-.
C-. C. I like Dawson. Dawson. I feel like you saying that you really like Quentin Morris versus you appreciate Dawson Knox is kind of like you saying like November Rain is fine, but like where's that Chinese democracy?
What the hell? Out of left field, off the top rope. Not wrong though. No, that was pretty apt. But like, it's a pretty apt comparison because you're right. Like, no, Dawson Knox is like obviously, like I'm cool with Dawson Knox, but like the reason why I gave it such a low grade is like, look, Dawson Knox is a fine tight end, right? Dawson Knox is a perfectly acceptable tight end. Don't love his contract, to be honest with you, but I think that he's fine, right? Like he's a starting NFL tight end. He's nothing more, nothing less, in my opinion.
I feel like Dawson Knox, especially last year, was very underutilized.
He was. And maybe that's what's clouding my judgment a bit, right? Is recency bias maybe weighing in here a little bit with the grade, more so based on his usage as opposed to the actual player. But like, again, moving on from Dawson Knox, Quentin Morris, I said I like him. I like him as a developmental piece. Has he developed? I don't know. Like, I hope he's developed. I hope he's a tight end too. But I mean, God knows they don't, run 2 tight end sets. But regardless, like, and again, Zach Davidson's nothing. But like Quentin Morris, I like the dude a lot. I like the player a lot. I don't know if that's, if I'm comfortable with him as my tight end too. But again, given how often they do it, it's fine. And they did it last year. But again, they had like no production out of tight end. So like maybe D+ was a little harsh. I'll bump it up to a C-.
I'm willing to accept C-. I think it's wrong, but I'm gonna accept it as an answer.
Fair. Okay. People talking about Michael Meyer.
No,
Michael
absolutely
Mayer?
not.
I don't
That's
want
not
to draft a tight end.
Imagine wasting a first-round pick on a tight end you're not going to use.
Like exactly, right? Because like they are paying Dawson Knox, and when they did decide to use a tight end last year, he wasn't awful.
Remember when the Seahawks traded like a first-round pick and their starting center to the Saints to get Jimmy Graham?
How could you forget?
And instead of using Jimmy Graham as just a massive wide receiver, they tried to use him as like an actual tight end, and it didn't work.
Darnell Washington.
That's what I think of.
Darnell Washington is a name. Again,
I don't like Darnell Washington. Again, not gonna entertain that idea, but
right. I don't want to draft a tight end high necessarily
as a name.
But I like the idea of LeBron James as a football player. I do think that's pretty cool. Fullback Reggie Gilliam, I'll give him a B+. Reggie Gilliam, like A-.
For really?
For fullback. Are you
okay?
Are you a Reggie Gilliam hater?
No, wait, hold on. Hold on. You're not going to sit here and try and be like, oh, you're a Reggie Gilliam hater because you don't want to put a freaking A- on him as a fullback. What? What's that mean?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I have to. We are going down the depth chart, and we are grading position groups.
I'm calling him a B-.
We are grading position groups. Reggie Gilliam is the only player at his position. We'll do the same.
I agree.
We'll do the same for long snapper, right? We are a very.
Oh wait, can we do long snapper right now? A+? Are we okay with that?
Nice. Yes. Okay.
Cool. All right. Let's just get that out of the way. So anyway, back to full. What is this A-? I love Reggie Gilliam. I do. Yeah. They should utilize him more.
Mm-hmm.
A- is very aggressive, though.
Look, we are an intricately detailed show. The people agree. The people agree with me. I'm with you. Gilliam's a beast.
I like Reggie Gilliam. I'm not against Reggie Gilliam. A- is a lot. A- is like Pro Bowl type of player, if you're asking me.
Gilliam may be one of the best receiving fullbacks in the league. His
here?
Route running and hands are surprisingly great. Look, I was hoping we were going to utilize him more last season. David, we just found your least favorite Buffalo Bill, and it's Reggie Gilliam. Wow. Very telling. We're learning a lot here about Greg's favorite person. I'm going to tell Greg right now, and he might have to, come in and
too late. I still have the screenshots. Doesn't matter.
Scratch it for the record. Joe writes,
you're going to call him an A-. I'm going to call him a B-. Let's meet in the middle and call this a B.
All right, that's fair. Joe writes, need to define the grading scale.
Nope. We are absolutely not doing that.
Nope, we don't do that. We don't do that.
We are vibes only. We're moving on.
It's all vibes. That's what the podcast is. We should just rename it. No one watches it. We can just rename it to the the Vibe Hour, the Vibe Up. No one. Oh, that's an awful name. I love it. Cover one Vibe Up. The Vibe Up. Oh, that's so bad. C grade. That's like if you're basing it off like usage and positional stuff, which we're doing for some positions and aren't for others. This is great. Okay, B for Reggie Gilliam. That's fair.
B.
Offensive line. Do you want to do tackles and interior line individually or just all together?
No, let's just do it all together.
All right.
We don't have time to get into the nitty-gritty.
Going down the line, we got Deion Dawkins, Connor McGovern, who, of course, recently signed from the Dallas Cowboys, not the New York Jets. Mitch Morse, Ryan Bates, Spencer Brown. At depth, they have David Quessenberry, Greg Mance, Ike Butker, Alec Anderson, Tommy Doyle, who, that's kind of up in the air where he's playing. Is he going to be guard? Is he going to be a 6'7" guard? Would be funny. Ryan Van DeMark, and then the recently signed David Edwards, serving as some depth in the interior there. A Cromer guy makes a lot of sense just from that perspective. So, David, I'm going to throw it to you because the offensive line, guard was the position going into this offseason that I think us in particular and a lot of people were like, guard they need to upgrade at guard. They do so in the form of Connor McGovern and David Edwards. So what is your grade for this this revamped, retooled, rekindled line?
I'm calling this a C- at this point. I think Connor McGovern was a solid signing. I think this is one of those signings that's like a solidifying piece, not like your line is going to be like exponentially better because you got Connor McGovern. Like that's not what this is about, right?
Right.
Mitch Morse is a very good player, has his limitations just because of his size, but is still a very good player, and they ask him to do a lot of things, and he does a very good job of doing that. Deion Dawkins, generally consistent, has a couple of moments against particularly like elite level pass rushers where he kind of, falls. It's still generally very, very good type of left tackle. Ryan Bates, I imagine will be a little bit better this year. I think that just, I just think he'll be a little bit better this year. And if he's not, I can imagine David Edwards kind of slipping into that spot and being fine. And then Spencer Brown, right tackle with him and Questenberry. I don't know. And honestly, I'd rather see a draft pick there than either of those two. But, maybe Spencer Brown progresses, a year removed from that back injury. Obviously, that's a tough thing to recover from. But, I don't feel comfortable banking on that. So I'm calling this a C-.
Yeah, I'm right there with C- or C. That seems fair. Spencer Brown, again, I'm hesitant to say anything about Spencer Brown because any of the Buffalo Bills could beat my ass. I feel like Spencer Brown would kill me. I genuinely feel like dude
that's fair.
Murder me. Though I am wearing an Iowa sweater. So he, I might be getting props from him, but he's holding the line back in a way. And I don't think week 17, a hypothetical world, I don't think he is starting at right tackle for the Buffalo Bills by the end of the year or even by the start of it. I think they are very much, a Darnell Wright team, maybe that I could see them going right tackle early, which I'd be fine with, right? Because that would make a lot of sense. And, that would theoretically improve the line. The chat's really all roughly in the same grade here range. Tackle with C, guard C+, C, D+, B-, C, all in that like very middling a C or C-, where it's just like not great, not terrible.
And like I hope that by the end of the season this is closer to a C+, maybe even a B-.
Mm-hmm.
But because you don't need it to be an A. You don't need this to be the Eagles' offensive line where it's just like stud, 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 stud all across the board, like future Hall of Famers at multiple positions. That's not what you're looking for. You have Josh Allen who can create plenty of plays on his own. You just need it to be good enough that he's not just like bailing from pockets because that's just sort of his habit because Roger Saffold is abysmal.
Pro Bowler.
God. Him and Tyler Huntley, they can chat it up at the Pro Bowl next year.
I think it was our last podcast. We were just, shitting on Roger Saffold as one does on a Buffalo Bills podcast. Yeah. And somebody commented, and I think we both ignored it, but somebody just commented like, "You're saying a Pro Bowl guard was bad?" And it's like, yes. Yes, we are saying that. Did we
like,
watch
not to be that guy, but like watch the tape, bro.
Okay, so we talked about the idea of, we're grading as it is right now.
By the way.
You're right. Okay, so I'm not gonna bring it up. So yeah, we're at like a C. We're at like a C for the offensive line. But Mike Malley Guitar, I was gonna bring your comment up. Let the record show that it was a good comment. I was gonna bring it up. Okay, moving on. We'll do end and tackle individually because I do think that's important to do. All right, so at defensive end, you have Greg Rousseau, Boogie Basham, who is sending
For how long, though?
Right, sending some cryptic ass tweets. AJ Epinesa, Kingsley Jonathan, and then at some point this season, you have Von Miller returning from his ACL injury. Sean McDermott saying today that he is on schedule. He is on track in his recovery, which is great. Von Miller likes to get on his Twitch streams or whatever and say, I'll be back week 1. And it's like, you tore your ACL on Thanksgiving. I don't know if you're going to be back.
He thought he was going to be back 2 weeks later.
He did.
He didn't think he tore his ACL.
That is true. But like the history, I want to believe Von Miller. I would like to believe you, Von. Again, friend of the show, watcher of the program. Okay. History suggests that you are not going to be playing week 1. So let's judge it based on, currently what they are. Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, Boogie Basham, Kingsley Jonathan, and then half a season or 10 to 12 weeks of Von Miller. See?
So, assuming Von Miller is healthy whenever he comes back, that's like an A tier type of player.
It is still a very good player.
Yeah. Greg Rousseau
is a B.
Right now is a B type of player.
Yes.
I'm willing to say that. He has the potential to turn to like B plus A minus territory, in my opinion, because he has that ability.
Mm-hmm.
The other defensive ends leave a whole lot to be desired.
Yeah.
Like, Boogie Basham contributes nothing to a football team except being out there with a jersey on. That's it. I can't think of anything Boogie Basham has done in the NFL.
He's a tweener. Yeah, he's going to be between me and the line at, at Waffle House. I don't know. There was a joke there. There was a joke. I didn't find it. The
joke is that he's probably going to Arizona, even though Steve Keim isn't there anymore to draft another tweener.
To get his tweener?
But I do think that, Boogie Basham and AJ Epinesa do not move the needle for me. In fact, they move the needle so little that I'm looking at Kingsley Jonathan as like edge 3, maybe?
You're doing the Quentin Morris thing, Chinese democracy.
I'm not doing the Quentin Morris thing. This is a very different scenario. Don't put that slander on me.
I don't know if it is. But you're absolutely right. Dawson Knox is I've seen far more from Dawson Knox than I've ever seen from an AJ Epinesa or a Boogie Basham. Boogie's model is Vernon Butler. Oh boy.
Oh my God.
Oh boy. See, this is the thing. Roy Collins writes, Epinesa played 40% of the snaps and got 6.5 sacks quietly. And it's like, yeah, you were a second-round pick. Make some noise. Or just like, no, we're at the point where you can't hold, draft stock with Boogie or AJ Epinesa to him and expect that. He is what he is. And to me, he is just like a fine, again, second rotation, whatever.
And in
not
fairness
a
to Epinesa, they took him. Despite him, they drafted him in the second round, and then they basically said, we don't like the way that your body is, and we also don't like the way that you play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to try and change both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why did you draft this guy? If you don't like his physical makeup or the way he plays, why did you draft him? That doesn't make any sense to me. So, yeah. AJ Epinesa is one of those guys where it's like maybe going to a different team will be a benefit to him and he'll, turn into a better player than he is. But, we're not talking about that. That's not the point of this discussion. The point of the discussion is what does he bring to the Bills in 2023? And honestly, feels like not much.
Right. He has his role. He has his niche that he, again, quietly fills, and he is okay at it. Not a needle mover in any significant way. And then Boogie Basham, whatever, Kingsley Jonathan. So looking at like week 1, the only defensive end that I very much like that's currently on the roster is Greg Rousseau. So again, where do we judge this? With the 5 or 4 dudes plus half a year of Von Miller, is it a where in that C range is it? Because that's right where it's around.
I mean, I don't know, man.
It's hard.
Is it fair to just say incomplete for this?
We'll say incomplete.
We'll call it incomplete.
We'll say incomplete, just because again,
Alright.
there's not enough. Well, no, see, no, because there is enough of a sample size on Rousseau, on Epinesa, on Basham to be able to make a general grade off of those three together. Those three together would be like a C, and then you add in 8 games of Von Miller and Kingsley Jonathan. We're at like C plus. We're at like C.
You want to go with C plus?
We're at C plus range. Like if we were grading this, it would be like a 74 out of 100, right?
All right, fine.
That's the defensive end is the one grade where we go to number grading. We get rid of letters.
Yeah.
We have to get very specific. 74%. Okay. Yes, this is like this is the Thor Love and Thunder of the Bills roster right now, where it's like
I still haven't seen that, and honestly, at this point, I don't plan to.
not as bad as a lot of people say, but I'm a big Taika Waititi fan. We'll talk about this on the movie section of the.
Of course,
I love this podcast. Talk about that on the movie section of the Bills podcast. Defensive tackle. Again, this is one where it's like it's hard. And also Shaq Lawson. We can't factor it in, but if Shaq Lawson comes back at defensive end, that kind of bumps it up a little bit. Okay, defensive tackle. Again, I say that because Jordan Phillips was rumored to be in the building today for a visit, and it's like, dude, why are you in for a visit? Did you not check out the whole building the 3 years that you've been here? Like, come on, like. It's very funny. It's very funny. Maybe he just wanted to check out the nap room again.
Here's where your locker was.
Right.
Could be yours again.
Wink. Like, it's very funny. So we'll see. Maybe theoretically we could be having this conversation in a half an hour and Jordan Phillips signs and it's different, right? And it's a healthy Jordan Phillips, but whatever. So we can't do that as of 8:28 Monday night. This is who they currently have at defensive tackle. And again, this could change because there's Ed Oliver trade rumors, but whatever. Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Tim Settle, Kendall Vickers, Brandon Bryant, Eli Anko, Cortez Broughton. I'm going. See, I don't like that rotation. I don't like the rotation. Unit. I don't like the second unit. If this team didn't rotate defensive linemen as frequently as they do, right? And I just knew Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones were going to be on the field for, damn near the entire game, it'd be a lot higher than it is. My grade would be a lot higher than it is. But knowing that, they're not playing all the snaps and that the likes of, Tim Settle, I think Jordan Phillips is going to be back, but I can't factor that in. I guess that takes it to yeah, you could take it.
So, first of all, I feel like as the grades from the chat are coming in D plus, I feel like a lot of that is coming off the heels of that Cincinnati game where they just got absolutely boat raced and steamrolled by backup offensive linemen.
Yes,
I understand the frustration with that. I share those frustrations. I'm with you. Also, that was probably their worst games, right? And do you want to judge them based off of their worst game? I still think Ed Oliver is good. I would like him to be more consistent. Daquan Jones is a good player. Tim Settle, not great. A little disappointing last year, obviously, because he took a pay cut just to stay on the team this year. And then, maybe Eli Anko is something. Maybe one of these other guys. Again, maybe Jordan Phillips comes back. I'm calling this like a B- group. I think Chat's
not going to like that.
They're not going to like it, and I don't really care. They can boo. I've seen what makes them cheer. I like this group better than most, I guess. Again, Daquan Jones is on the wrong side of 30, but he's still got, I think, enough left in the tank. Ed Oliver is like a good player, but needs to be more consistent. And like you said, the rotation behind that is not great. All right, let's call it a C plus because I don't love the rotation. Let's call it a C plus.
Yeah, I'm fine with C plus. My least favorite thing about this offseason, and there have been, an abundance of things that I haven't liked about this offseason, but is the general sentiment, it now seems to be accepted that Ed Oliver isn't good for some reason, and
do I need to pull out the sign? Do I need to throw back to my first time on the pod?
I know if you have it on you, but I was gonna say if you still have that sheet of paper from a year and a half ago, impressive. But Roy Collins writes, how many points did Miami in the wild card round with a 7th round rookie QB score on them? Yeah, D plus is earned.
Was that the defensive line though? Haven't we litigated that game enough? Where I would blame that more on the turnovers and the fact that that team was getting the ball out pretty quickly.
C plus. And again, this is all going to prove to be for naught, and it's going to be meaningless because they're going to add someone or subtract someone. We'll see what they ultimately do. Defensive tackle, but for now, C plus is fine. Linebacker. Interesting. This is where their obviously biggest loss. Amicus writes, we're back. We're right back to defensive tackle. Ed Oliver is a first round pick at number 9. This is what we're saying.
Okay.
It goes back to what I just said about AJ Epinesa.
So factually speaking, you're wrong. He was a first round pick and the 9th overall pick. So chew on that.
Let's get that right.
No, but it is like you said with AJ Epinesa. We're not here trying to compare based on that alone. We're just talking about these players as they are now. We're not sitting here saying because AJ Epinesa was a 2nd round pick and hasn't really lived up to that, we have to put that grade down. It's no, it's just because he's not a great player. It's not because he was a 2nd round pick that we're, downgrading this. Right. It's just that, whatever.
Right. Yeah, they're far enough into their careers at this point that you have to separate where they were drafted and just look at them as who they are. And Oliver is a very flashy, if not inconsistent, 3-tech. But okay, I like Ed Oliver.
All right. Linebacker. We've got maybe 20 minutes to get through the rest of this.
We got it in the bag.
Easily. So Matt Milano. Great all-pro, phenomenal player, handsome AF. Everyone else is either a question mark or Tyrell Dodson, and they suck. So,
oh boy, I wish
He's gonna find this somehow, even though it's not on Twitter, and he's gonna block me now.
I was gonna say I wish I could talk with an asterisk so I could asterisk out certain letters of his name so he couldn't find me talking about him. But I unfortunately can't do that. But no, Matt Milano, obviously the needle mover, right? Arguably was. I found a great Twitter or TikTok exchange the other day. It was Theo Ash, very popular NFL TikToker, and he made a video talking about his least favorite free agent contracts, and Tremaine Edmunds was on there. Yes, and
I saw that. He's wrong, by the way, but
somebody commented, Tremaine Edmunds is the best cover linebacker in the NFL. And then Theo Ash wrote, Tremaine Edmunds wasn't even the best cover linebacker in Buffalo. That's regardless of your opinions, Matt Milano is a very good linebacker. And he does, he puts this, again, I don't even know where you base this at because the things around him, like you said, David, drag it down so much more. Terrell Bernard, in theory, like the player, right? I like his athleticism. He was fine in the Pittsburgh game, but am I banging the table and be like, yeah, he's ready to take on a bigger role? No. And Tyrell Dodson, no dice, no thank you. Balen Spector, again, big question mark. Tyler Matakevich, and not a defender, not a linebacker. And again, McDermott comes out today and says they're gonna, They are going to add to this group. They're going to add a draft pick. I wholeheartedly believe that. But McDermott's already said, no, T-Dot and Balen Spector and, the likes of those guys deserve to come in and compete for this job.
They do, but
Yikes.
they're going to compete for this job with whoever they draft. Like, you look, there's potential where they just roll with this and they just basically try and have Terrell Bernard and T-Dot compete for the spot. A rough ask if you're looking at this team, but I can't imagine a scenario where they don't at least try very hard to get Jack Campbell from Iowa, right? Like that seems to be where if you're going to get somebody that's going to try and contribute in year one, that seems to be the guy. But I don't know, man. This unit, if we're going to grade this unit, I'm calling this like a D because Matt Milano is fantastic and everyone else is either just
that's a D. Trying to do hand signal.
You are. You're doing great, Kyle.
Thank you. I figured it out. Yeah, no, it's a D. It's a D because the other
we love Matt Milano. Everything else is
stinky.
Yeah. It's not great.
Amicus writes Jack Campbell at 27 works if a top receiver isn't there. I feel like I kind of need to be on board. I need to be on the train.
Yeah.
Though I'm not. I'm fine with it. Like, it's cool. If that's who the pick is, cool. That makes sense. Not the linebacker I want per se, but he's the linebacker that they would get. But okay. Moving on. Cornerback.
Hold on. Not moving on just yet.
Okay.
Not just yet. Just to be clear, to address a particular comment here from AK Cash. He's slow. I'm good on Campbell. He ran a 4.65, which is the 67th percentile for linebackers. That's not slow. That's above average.
I ran that. I ran that easily, simply, not hard. Okay.
Doing that, like, you know what? Never mind. We're moving on.
Quarterback. We've got Tre'Davious White, Dane Jackson. I don't know why they listed him as the starter. Kyer Elam, Christian Benford. They've also got a Jamarcus Ingram and a Saran Neal, and then also Taron Johnson in the slot. Okay. B. I'm gonna go B, or B minus, more like a B for me because I like Tre'Davious White a lot. I think Tre'Davious White was kind of, a lot of people soured on Tre'Davious White last year, just given how long it took him to come back and how long it took him to beat Tre'Davious White by the time that he did come back. But by the end of the season, he was, classic Trey making plays, a play at least. But by the end of the season, Tre'Davious White was more or less the player that, we've come to expect him to be. And then, he has a full offseason of recovery now. His first full offseason where he is not recovering from an ACL tear. Yeah, I do expect Trey White to bounce back next year. Kyer Elam showed some really good flashes last year, got benched for no particular reason, at least no on-field reasons, no tangible on-field reasons. And then by the end of the year, he was kind of taking over that spot. Again, looked really good in spots, and I expect him to continue to develop and be that number 2 corner. And then you look at the depth, you got Dane Jackson, very good cornerback 3. I'm very I don't love the idea of going into the season as Dane Jackson with, as my starter. I've seen enough from him to know that that's not what he is. I'm comfortable with him as my CB3 and Christian Benford, right? Yeah. Christian Benford could be a dude who usurps that role this year as well, because he kind of, showed up in spots last year. Then you got Jamarcus Ingram and Saran Neal, non-factors. Taron Johnson, very good slot corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say this is a B with the potential for an A, right? Like if Kyer Elam takes like a big step, if Trey White really returns back to that form, Christian Benford was starting for this team last year, and Dane Jackson is really good depth. So, yeah, B, potential for an A.
Amicus writes, damn it, did y'all talk defensive end yet? I have an inside, so we're getting scoops on the Cover One vibe up. We did
Spill.
talk. We did talk about
defensive end, but we're glad to backtrack and
right.
talk
Well,
with you guys.
AJ Epinesa. We'll just go. We're going back. We'll back trace it. Will Trey ever be the same? I think he was looking more or less. It took him a while to get back into the swing of things last year, but I think by the end of the year he was showing flashes of that. So I think again, give him a full offseason. Give him a full offseason where he's not focused on learning how to walk again.
Yeah, I mean, this was like the first significant injury of Trey White's career, right? And he is a very emotional, very passionate type player where so much of that is tied to it. So when you get that taken away, when you are forced to come back from something that you've literally never had to do your entire life, it's hard. It's hard. And I think that, the Bills were willing to be patient with him, where I think some teams probably wouldn't have been. So I think that Trey will be fine. I think he'll be fine.
Safety. This might just be an A-. Jordan Poyer, again, it played hobbled and broken for much of last year and did so quite well.
So let's shorten this, right? So let's say if Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are in fact healthy and the types of players that we think that they are, this is an A, no problem. You add in Taylor Rapp as depth, that's come on, this is easy. But there's just that question mark of just is Jordan Poyer the same?
Mm-hmm.
Probably. Is Mike Hyde going to be the same? We'll see. But then again, that's why you get somebody like Taylor Rapp. That's because he is a starting caliber type of safety. And I think that he could bring something to this team in the event that one or the other goes down. So, yeah, I'm calling this an A.
And we'll see what DeMar Hamlin, what happens with his situation. But yeah, it's an A. Okay, kicker, Tyler Bass, A. Sam Martin, B-. Long snapper, Reed Ferguson.
We already did Reed Ferguson. We said A+.
Okay, thank you.
There we go.
We're an hour and 41 minutes deep, so that means it's time for us to go. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the Cover One YouTube channel. The subscribe button is somewhere down there. Make sure to subscribe to all the Cover One podcast feeds over there on iTunes. Leave a 5-star review if you feel so kind. We've got a bunch of great shows. We got I wouldn't call this one of the great ones, but it's certainly the vibiest. It's certainly up there in terms of vibes.
There you go.
Air Raid Hour, Film Room. You got Cover One Buffalo. You got Disguised Coverage. You got Going Deep. You got If the Walls Could Talk. You got the new Saturday show with Joe DeRosa. You got the Fantasy Channel. There's just so much great content. You got the Greg Thompson Sports Show, even. So much great stuff that you can, be checking out. Subscribe to, again, podcast feeds, the channel. It's all good stuff. Make sure to check out cover1.football. Aha, good job, Kyle. Good job to remember your own stuff. And become an insider. Yep. Again, what is the Cover One Pass? That is a Cover One streaming service, if you will. You get exclusive members-only content, in-depth analysis, including scheme play and player breakdowns, all the stuff. It's on the screen. Only $57 per year. What a value. And you get a t-shirt? I didn't even get a t-shirt. And then also you can, you get access to the Cover One and Premium Slack, where you can talk to a bunch of people, Cover One personalities, and Bills fans about a bunch of different topics. That's always fun in there. Make sure to check out BetUS and Underdog Fantasy with promo code Cover One. Again, thank you both for sponsoring this show and Cover One in general. I'll get one more tactical nuke sound in there just for for the road.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Thank you all for joining. Rubbish again. We're not doing true or rubbish for two reasons tonight. Number one, we're an hour 43 deep. Two, I didn't prepare any. Wow. Rave reviews in the comments for tonight. Thank you all. Thank you all for watching. This was a long show. And
thank you.
David, where can the people find you on Twitter?
You all can find me at DFoxy, at DFAUXY. Yeah, I'm still trying to get over the fact that Greg Thompson called me his favorite person at Cover One. So, suck it, Kyle. Where can the people find you?
That's fine. At Kyle Silagyi. So Greg has never been quite that kind to me. But he did one time tweet, like somebody who has since unfollowed me on Twitter. So, it's all for naught now. But yeah, somebody tweeted like, I think I don't hate Kyle or something like that, where it was just like, Kyle's unique. He's not like the normal podcast host, but he's not bad. And then Greg responded something to the, remark of just like, yeah, I could see someone thinking Kyle's the funniest Cover One member. And I was like, that's all I need. Just one person to be like, yeah, no, I don't think that. And I don't think the majority of people do, but I could see if you have like this niche esoteric sense of humor, I could see, you thinking Kyle is funny, which that's all I need. That's all I want to be, baby. Thank you all for watching, and we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.